There is a place beneath the mountains of eastern Kentucky where the rock has a memory. Stand inside one of the older sealed shafts near Letcher County, the ones the company maps mark simply as exhausted, and press your hand flat against the seam wall. What you feel is not the random texture of compressed sediment. It is a geometry. Vertical striations, repeating at regular intervals, each column maintaining a near-identical diameter across hundreds of linear meters of tunnel, through bends, through faults, through elevation changes that should, by every standard geological model, disrupt any consistent pattern. It doesn't merely suggest a biological structure. It is, in its geometry, an exact replica of vascular tissue, of bark, of something that once conducted fluid through its interior and called that process living. The miners who cut into these formations in the 1880s and 1890s left records that the official geological literature absorbed quietly and never returned to. A foreman's operational log from the Consolidation Coal Company, archived at the University of Kentucky Special Collections and dated October 1893, describes a cavity encountered in the number 4 shaft. A hollow space within the seam wall, roughly circular in cross-section, the interior surface of which crumbles in long fibers rather than in fragments. The man who wrote those words had no university education. He had, however, spent 11 years touching coal underground. He recognized fiber when he felt it. We compressed that entire biological epoch, 60 million years of it, into a layer of black stone. Then we dug tunnels through it. Then we burned it. And we named this process industry and moved on. The hypothesis that persists at the careful margins of paleobotanical inquiry is not that giants walked through Kentucky. It is something quieter and perhaps more disorienting, that the organisms themselves were the giants, that the hollow chambers, the fibrous walls, the repeating columnar geometry are not geological accidents, but the preserved ghost architecture of biological structures so massive that compression across 300 million years has still not fully erased their original form. The Earth, understood this way, is not a geological record. It is a cemetery, and we have been mining it without ever asking what we were burning. Here is what the scientific record confirms without ambiguity. During the Carboniferous period, atmospheric oxygen concentrations reached approximately 35% compared to today's 21%. This is measured through isotopic analysis of ancient amber inclusions and confirmed across multiple independent research lineages. This oxygen surplus is the accepted explanation for Carboniferous megafauna: dragonflies with 70-centimeter wingspans, millipedes exceeding 2 meters in length. The biological logic is consistent. Higher oxygen density allows larger organisms to sustain metabolic function at greater scale. The textbook stops there. It does not ask what the flora looked like under the same atmospheric conditions. The process by which organic cellular geometry survives across geological time is called silica permineralization, the gradual mineral replacement of cellular walls, while the microscopic architecture of the original tissue is retained in stone. This is not theoretical. It is observable in specimens in the Smithsonian's National Museum of Natural History, in the Natural History Museum in London, and in the paleobotanical collections of the University of Chicago. The geometry of a lepidodendron vascular bundle, permineralized, is structurally indistinguishable from the cross-sectional pattern of the Harlan County shaft walls. Willard Hayes, a field geologist with the U.S. Geological Survey, documented 14 anomalous chamber formations in the eastern Kentucky coalfields in his 1891 survey report. He noted with deliberate scientific caution that these chambers showed no evidence of the thermal recrystallization or mineral deposition patterns associated with igneous intrusion. The standard textbook explanation for hollow chambers within coal seams is magma-driven gas pocketing, a legitimate mechanism, but one that invariably leaves a thermal signature in the surrounding mineral matrix. Hayes's 14 chambers had no such signature. His explanation: differential compression of organic strata. His report has not been cited in the primary geological literature since 1906. Now we must leave Kentucky, because the anomaly does not stay in Kentucky. The Deccan Traps of Maharashtra, India, one of the largest volcanic provinces on Earth, covering approximately 500,000 square kilometers, present basalt columns of such geometric regularity that the 19th century surveyor Henry Francis Blandford, writing in his 1867 Geological Memoir of Western India for the Geological Survey of India, described specific column groupings as possessing a cross-sectional uniformity more consistent with biological than with purely mineralogical processes. Blandford was a rigorous empiricist. He was not speculating, he was recording what he measured. Travel further, to the salt range of northern Pakistan, where Cambrian and Carboniferous strata sit in direct and geologically anomalous contact, a stratigraphic discontinuity that Pakistani geologist Asrar Kazmi documented in his 1979 survey for the Geological Survey of Pakistan, noting organic pockets within the Carboniferous layers whose isotopic signatures suggested incomplete permineralization. Biological material preserved in a state partway between organic and mineral. Then to the Bungle Bungle range of Western Australia, where sandstone towers rise in perfect vertical cylinders, their surfaces banded in alternating silica and iron oxide layers, that the CSIRO's 1988 geological assessment attributed to cyclical biological depositional events rather than to standard aeolian or fluvial processes. The same structure, the same diameter ratios, the same persistence of form, from Maharashtra to the Salt Range, to the Kimberley Plateau, to the coal seams of eastern Kentucky. The pattern is not regional, it is planetary. And planetary patterns, in the language of science, have only two explanations: coincidence or cause. There is a dynamic in the history of science called institutional inertia, and it is important to understand that it is not malice. It does not require a conspiracy. It requires only that a system which has invested enormously in one map of reality will, at a structural level, resist the cartographic revision that anomalous data demands. The USGS, the Smithsonian, the Bureau of American Ethnology. These institutions produced extraordinary science. They also produced frameworks, and frameworks, once load-bearing, are not revised lightly. Willard Hayes filed his report. Henry Francis Blandford filed his memoir. Asrar Kazmi filed his survey. The data entered the archive. The framework did not change. The map is not the territory. This is one of the oldest warnings in epistemology, and it applies here with a weight that the textbook version of geology has not yet been willing to bear. We were given a map of the deep past, drawn by careful men working from limited exposures, using frameworks that have been refined but not fundamentally re-examined in over a century. That map says the columns are volcanic. That map says the chambers are gas pockets. That map says the pattern is coincidence, repeated across 5 continents and 300 million years, without signal, without meaning. The miners of Letcher County pressed their hands against those walls in lamplight at the end of long shifts and recognized something the map had not prepared them to name. Not giants, not a cover-up. Something quieter than either of those stories, and more persistent. A structure that the human hand, without any instruction, identifies instinctively, because the hand has touched wood before. The question is not whether they were right. The question is why, with all the instrumentation and all the archive access that the 21st century affords us, We have still not gone back into those sealed shafts with fresh eyes and asked with genuine openness what it is that the walls are remembering. This content is presented for documentary exploration and speculative research purposes only. All alternative theories are offered as open questions, not established fact. Scientific data referenced throughout is drawn from verified public archives and historical geological records.